Welcome. My name is David Baker. I'm a professor of physics and director of the Adams Observatory here at Austin College. I just want to make sure that you can see my screen. You should be able to see me and then also an image of the Adams Observatory.
Yes.
All right, fantastic. Let me also say that throughout the session that we have, if you have any questions at any time, please feel free to stop and ask. We don't have to wait till the end to do the question answer session. I want this to be relatively informal. I'm going to start with a couple of slides to just give you some background about the observatory, and then we'll actually move into the dome and see the telescope. Like I said, I am the director of the Adams Observatory. We are so lucky to have this facility. It is one of the best observatories on a college campus in the United States, and for that matter, the world. The manufacturer of the telescope makes some of the best telescopes in the world. You will find them on professional observatories, say in Hawaii or Chile. It was custom made for our specifications, and I'll tell you a little bit more about the telescope when we actually go into the dome and see it. Right now, I'm in the control room. The control room is where we have all the computers that control the telescope and the cameras. The computer that you see here is the one that controls the telescope. In a little bit, we'll move closer to it so that you can see a little bit more detail. But this control room that I'm in on the top of a mountain is called a warm room because the telescope itself and the dome has to be the same temperature as the outside air. Because of that, it's usually very cold inside the dome, and so the control room is climate controlled, and it's often called the warm room. During the summer, for us, it's the cool room because summers can get a little bit hot here in Texas. There are three main objectives of the Adams Observatory. The first one is education. If you take an astronomy course here at Austin College, you will have the opportunity to use this facility. We offer a variety of courses for students all across campus. You don't have to be a science major to use the telescope here at Austin College. And I think that's one really unique aspect that we offer. We have courses developed for non-science majors, and here is a listing of some of the courses we've offered recently. As a freshman, you will take a first-year seminar course. Recently, we have offered some seminar courses with the titles of the most extreme places in our solar system and the dynamic universe. These aren't offered every year, but it just gives you a taste of what has been offered in the past. We also offer upper level courses for our physics majors, in particular observational astronomy, and then some research courses, which depending on the professor, you may be able to use the telescope in that course. And then we have Jan Term courses. And Jan Term, if you're not familiar with it, is one of the unique offerings that Austin College has. We have regular semesters during the fall and the spring, but during the month of January, students take one course, 8 hours a day, but one course, and you can really dive deep into some stuff that's interesting. Some of our courses in the past have had an international component to it at Austin College, but most of the courses during January are on campus. This past January, in fact, all of them were on campus. But here are some of the opportunities for Jan Term, right, for you to take an astronomy course and potentially use the telescope. The second main objective for the Adams Observatory is research. Research, not just for the scientists here at Austin College that use it, but also for the students who are going to become scientists in the future. We have two main areas of our research. One involves stars. Dr. David Whelan in the physics department, who's an astronomer and an expert on stars, does research with our students. And this is a diagram or an artist rendition of a giant star that is rotating so fast that it is not spherical in shape. It is flattened out, kind of like a pancake, not quite there, but it is flattened because it's rotating so fast. And because this massive star is rotating so fast, it spews out material on the side. And so he and his students investigate these massive stars that are rapidly rotating. It's pretty cool research. For myself, I'm interested in the planets, not just the planets in our solar system, like Venus and Mars, Jupiter, but also planets in other solar systems. The students have worked with me to search for exoplanets. These are planets that orbit other stars. And here's a photograph of students that worked with me a couple of summers ago, and we were searching for exoplanets. The third component of the Adams Observatory involves outreach. Again, any student on campus has this opportunity. Our most popular and fun thing that we do will be a star party. Star Party is open to the entire campus, but it's also occasionally open to the wider community. Student volunteers that run these star parties go through a training with small telescopes, and then they also have a chance to use the large telescope at the Adams Observatory. So these star parties are essentially run by students. And here you see on the roof of the Idea Center here at Austin College, this particular star party actually was during a lunar eclipse. And so we were on the roof getting ready for the lunar eclipse on that night. Now, I want to quickly show you some images that we've been able to take at the Adams Observatory. Here we see Jupiter. On the left is an image taken back in 1994 from a professional observatory. And this was during a time when there was a comet. The Shoemaker-Levy 9 comet was crashing into Jupiter, and here it left a big scar where the impact or one of the impacts occurred. But this is an image from a professional observatory in California. And here you see an image taken here at the Adams Observatory by students and processed and developed by students here in 2018. And you can see that the image that we take here at the Adams Observatory is comparable to what you can get at a professional one. I would say that, in fact, our telescope is such high quality research grade that I consider it a professional quality telescope. Here's an image of Saturn, also taken by students. And when I say an image, this is not a simple snapshot of the planet. In fact, this is a combination of thousands of images. The way that we do this, we put a high-speed camera on the telescope, and it takes thousands of frames. But the atmosphere of the Earth, because it's turbulent, it has this roiling effect. And so sometimes the planet, Saturn, is in focus, in perfect focus, and other times it's out of focus because of the Earth's atmosphere. So what we do is we take this video, we select the frames that are in focus, and then we combine them to make this really spectacular image of Saturn. In addition to taking images of planets, we also go into deep space, galaxy far, far away. This is the Whirlpool Galaxy. In fact, it is two galaxies. This one spiral galaxy that you see here is colliding with this more elliptical shaped galaxy. And in fact, this elliptical shaped galaxy has already kind of gone through the spiral one, and it's dragging this arm with it. And then it's going to spiral back around. These are gravitationally interacting, but that's really a beautiful image that we took here at the Adams Observatory. And then the last image I want to show you is that of the Orion Nebula. Now you can actually see the Orion Nebula with your naked eye. But to your naked eye, it looks like a star. In fact, it's this big gas cloud where new stars are forming. In fact, we like to call this the birthplace of stars, because this gas cloud is collapsing, and once it gets dense enough, it can ignite and turn into a star. This image was also taken by Austin College students. And again, when I say an image, what I really mean is we're looking at, I think in this case, there were 81 different images that were taken and combined into this one. Right? Some are in the red, some in the green, and some in the blue, and then combined for this spectacular image. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Well, actually, I'll just make this a little bit larger, and we can keep the Orion Nebula on the screen. And I'm going to move around in the control room. So now I'm moving toward our main computer that controls the telescope. If you see, we've got a map of the sky. And since our telescope is computer controlled, it's so easy. It's really easy to operate. We just select a star on this map, and then the telescope will go right to that star, to that object. And then for the rest of the night, it will stay locked on that object. Also in the control room, this set of computers, which have now gone to sleep, this set of computers control the cameras, and here we're able to monitor the quality of the images as we take it. And then we have another computer that we use to basically record a log of all the observations we make, and also play some music, because late at night, you got to do something to keep things interesting. Now what I'm going to do is walk into out of the control room and walk into the dome. As I said, the dome is not climate controlled. It is the same temperature as the outside air. And the reason why it's the same temperature as the outside air is because if the telescope, if the mirror of the telescope were a different temperature, you would get heat waves that would basically be generated off of the telescope, and that would mess up your imaging. And that's not what you want, right? We want it to have as calm and clean an observation as possible. Here is a telescope. I'm actually going to put the computer down and tilt it up here so you can see a little bit more. And then I'll step back here. Welcome to the Adams Observatory. This telescope, her name is Rose. Rose because the manufacturer, when they were putting it together, had a code name for the yellow rose of Texas. As I said, it's a professional grade instrument. It's the same basic design as the Hubble Space Telescope. It's just not in orbit around Earth. But the way that it works is that light comes in from the top of the telescope. It hits a mirror right here, the primary mirror, which then sends light back up towards the top. There's a smaller mirror at the top that then reflects light back down through a hole here in the main telescope and to a set of instruments that you see right here. Currently, we have our camera attached on the telescope right now, our scientific camera. This camera is similar to some cameras that you might have at home, except that the CCD chip is very sensitive to low light, and it's basically been optimized for astronomical observing. Occasionally, we will take the camera off and put an eyepiece on so that you can look through the telescope with your eye, and that's what we do during star parties. This whole thing weighs 1.5 tons. And so what that means is we're on the 4th floor of the Idea Center, the observatory. And because we're on the 4th floor and you've got this really massive thing at the top, this is actually like an upside down pendulum with all the mass up here. And that is not where a pendulum wants to be. A pendulum wants to be down here. And so this is actually, from an engineering perspective, an unstable situation. So what we had to do was to build the structure so that it would reduce any vibrations. This telescope is completely vibrationally isolated from the rest of the building. So I can jump up and down here on the ground where I'm at, and it will not impact the telescope. When the telescope was installed back in 2013 and the engineer was here and installing it, at one point he said, "Oh, this is a really nice dome and observatory." And I thought, "Oh, that's kind of him, right? He's being nice to the customer." But then a few days later, a few nights later, during the testing of it, under his breath, he said, wow, this is really, really nice. And what he was referring to was the complete lack of vibration, right, in our images. So again, we're really fortunate to have this. Sometimes we spend late nights up here. So as a student, if you're doing research here at Austin College, depending on the weather, you might be spending a lot of time at night up here. But it is really a remarkable facility, and we're really lucky to have it. At this point, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Well, what's the furthest that you can see with the telescope?
Yeah, so what's the furthest that you can see in the telescope? So just to explain the distance, a light year is the distance that it takes light to travel in 1 year. The Earth distance from the sun is 8 light minutes. And so a light year, of course, is much longer than that. The furthest thing that we could theoretically see is a quasar. And a quasar is a very dense collection of stars that's really hot and developed very early on in the age of the universe. I haven't seen it myself, but theoretically, we should be able to see a quasar that is 1 billion light years away. The furthest thing that I have actually seen myself is, well, that Whirlpool Galaxy that I showed the image of. It is somewhere around 100 million, or I'm sorry, not 100 million, 10 million light years away. What other questions can I help answer? Well, let me just share with you some of the reactions that when students look through this telescope for the first time, let's say that we're looking at the planet Jupiter or the planet Saturn, the first reaction, like the thing that I hear the most often is, wow, because there's something really special about, with your own eye, seeing a planet, or I've got the Orion Nebula up right now, looking through the telescope and seeing the Orion Nebula in its full detail with your naked eye. Well, I say naked eye, with the aid of the telescope. You can see images, and the images, of course, are spectacular, but there really is something special about looking through the eyepiece yourself. And so that's for the students that have the opportunity to come to the observatory and look through this telescope. It really is a special moment.
In your opinion, what's like the coolest thing you've seen on it?
In my opinion, what is the coolest thing that I've seen? Well, that's a hard question to answer because I kind of get excited about a lot of stuff that we look at. I am partial to the planets, right? That's my area of research. So every time I look at Jupiter, right, every time I do that, and let me just go back to Jupiter, right? Every time I look at Jupiter through the telescope, it's moving, right? It's like, wow. And when you look at Jupiter through the telescope, you can also see some of its moons. And so that's really pretty cool. And then, of course, Saturn, right? Because Saturn's iconic, right? If you're, as a kid, if you were to draw something about outer space, it probably, you might draw the moon, you might draw an astronaut, you might draw a rocket ship, but more than likely you're going to draw the planet Saturn as well. And so when you look at Saturn through the telescope and through this big telescope, right? We have some small telescopes, and generally people do have some experience looking through small telescopes. But when you look at it through the big telescope, it really is takes your breath away. It's pretty cool. But also, I enjoy looking at these deep space objects. So the Andromeda Galaxy, as an example, is 2 million light years away. And we look at the Andromeda Galaxy. If you just don't look and see, okay, well, I see a collection of stars in the middle, and so the bulge is really bright, and then it gets faint as you go out. Yes, you can look at that and go, okay, yeah, it's interesting. But then once you think about it, took 2 million years for that photon of light to travel through space and to hit my eye. And now that photon of light is gone. But it took 2 million years. Human history is shorter than 2 million years. And when you put it in that perspective, the vastness of space, really just about anything you observe takes on a special meaning. We've had students observe supernova, and supernovae are basically exploding stars. So in one location of the sky, the star basically, it was in its dying stages and then exploded. So before it exploded, it was relatively dim, but then during the explosion, it brightens up significantly. And we've had students take images of supernova, so that's kind of cool. And then, of course, discovering a planet around another star, even though that's not an image or something that you can see directly with your eye, but the fact that we can use this technology to basically detect other planets, that's kind of special too.
Have you seen any other signs of life on planets?
Oh, have you seen any signs of life on planets? Well, the short answer is no. The longer answer is that no scientist has seen signs of life on other planets, but that doesn't mean that life does not exist there. Um, if you were to look for, I don't know, Earth-like planets, beyond our solar system, you might try to look for oxygen in the atmosphere of that planet, because Earth has oxygen, and of course, animal life requires oxygen for it to survive. So you might look for an oxygen atmosphere. You might look for, in combination with the oxygen, you might look for another compound, maybe methane, for example, because methane is also a byproduct of life. But just because you see oxygen and methane, that doesn't mean that that was produced by life. It could be formed by something abiotic, without life. And so even though these would be markers that you would look for, it's no guarantee that in fact you have found life. Mars is a good example. Mars is relatively close to us, so to speak, and there's evidence of methane in the Martian atmosphere, but it doesn't mean that methane has been produced by living organisms. There's a chance that there could be some bacteria deep underground in Mars, and that this methane kind of seeps out from underground, but that's just one possible hypothesis. Now, if you were to ask me, do I think that there is life beyond Earth? Yeah, my hypothesis there would be yes. I believe that there is a good chance that there is life beyond Earth. That planet Earth is not the only place to have life forms. But I think and let me also say that I think in our lifetimes there is a good chance that we may detect life beyond Earth, but it probably will not be what we would call "quote unquote" intelligent life. That it might be more microbial.